Welcome to the Elevate Your Brand podcast, where we help online coaches learn how to elevate their brand, become the experts in their industries so they can bring in more clients and create a life they want. I am your host, Chris Anderson. And if you want to make a difference in the lives of others, share this episode, go over to Apple Podcasts and follow us there to leave a positive rating and review. And together we can leave a bigger positive mark on the world. Hey, welcome back to another recording of Elevate Your Brand. I am Chris Anderson, your host, and today we're going to be diving into how we can be better at sales and our sales process and everything else that you need to basically know about selling with your small business starting out. So we're bringing on a great guest to talk about that. Today we got Gary Geiman, who is a business growth expert. He's an author. He's a public speaker. And he is with the Dominate 8 partners, and he's going to dive us into and dig into just our sales strategies, just from his expertise. So, Gary, thanks for being on Elevate Your Brand today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm looking forward to this.
For sure, yeah, I'm excited to dive into this. I think we can't practice enough at selling and our sales strategy within business. So, excited for the pointers and everything you give us today. But what got you into doing business, helping businesses, like what led you into that field?
And I feel like it's been a culmination of everything in my life. As I got it kind of into the workforce, I got my first taste of sales when I was 19. I sold lawn care, and I started working for, the name of the company at the time was ChemLawn. I think now they go by True Green.
Yep. Okay.
Started working for them, and you'll appreciate this because we live in the Midwest. I started selling lawn care on December 8th.
Oh, great time to start selling. You got to become good then.
Right. Yeah. I was 19 years old, wanting to make money. I think I valeted at night a couple nights a week on the weekends, did some other odd things here and there, but knew someone who was selling lawn care, and they were like, dude, there's some money here. And at 19 years old, like, let's try to get as much money as we can. I happen to have a great sales manager who was a great teacher, and he taught me some really valuable lessons that I carry on to this day. Things like listen a lot more than you talk. It's funny. I just got off of a sales call with a prospect 40 minutes ago, and I used a technique that I was taught when I was 19. And it basically is you ask a very thought-provoking question that makes them say yes or no. Because at some point you got to hear the no, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you shut up. And the first person who talks loses. And I'm pretty good at being quiet. Like I can handle silence. Some people can't. I can. And I like that uncomfortable silence because it makes the prospect think. And I was taught that at 19. And I'm 50 years old. I just used it. And it worked. It still works. So sales is a combination of things. And I learned a lot of those things as we go. The number one thing in sales is solving problems, right? Mm-hmm. And you asked how I got started or how I got into this.
Yeah.
I got into this because I saw a problem, especially in the home service arena. Companies that service homeowners and property owners. I saw the problem related to individuals not understanding what selling is, nor really being exposed to it. A lot of times a home service brand is started by a guy or a girl who's a good technician, and they want to go do it on their own. They've never had to, quote unquote, kill what they eat. So they think answering the phone and somebody telling them what they need and then them saying, yeah, I can do that, is selling. And it's not. That's order taking.
Yeah.
And definitely that's a part of the process. But for you to get to the level of revenue that you want to get in your business, like, you have to have a sales process that converts, and understanding that you provide solutions to problems that people have helps you in sales. But what that means is you have to realize what their problem is.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, and this is the exact reason why I do this, a lot of times home service business owners think that the solution is their service, when sometimes the solution is the result of their service, which makes it a little bit harder to sell because they're trying to sell this feature or this benefit when really it's an outcome, right? What's the old adage? It's don't don't sell the nail, sell the act of the hammer nailing the nail into the wood, right?
Yeah.
And so with that, understanding what problem solving is and being able to build sales processes around it, that you can then convert your marketing into higher dollars, higher conversions, those kind of things. That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a couple things right there that I just kind of took note on. The first one is when you said, and started and used it today, you asked that thought-provoking question to get them to say yes or no. Why is that so important?
People, so it, like in my business and similar probably to yours, people have a need for something, right? Mm-hmm. There's a need there, and they're trying to align with, if they're talking to you, they're trying to align with you and your company. If they're talking to me, they're trying to align with me and my company. Everybody listening, like when you talk to a prospect, they're trying to align with you and your company. And we all have core values that we do business by, live by, act by. And I'm very strong about my core values. And if a prospect doesn't meet the core value, or they have a lack of something in their business that keeps us from being able to help them be successful, I'm very open and honest at that level. Because number one, I don't ever want to chase money, and I don't ever want to chase prospects. Like, we put out messaging, that messaging draws people to us. So thought-provoking, in my opinion, and in this sales process, is the part where that customer determines if they really do align with you or not. And so, for instance, in this situation, the question that I asked them, because, they're wanting to get to a level 2, 3x their revenue, and they've been stagnant for 4 years, right? And sometimes this is a new customer too, like they just started in business, but this applies to a lot of people that are stuck and they reach out. And my number one question that I ask them, because they're always like, I want to hire you, but I want you to do it my way, right? That's kind of like if you have a Mercedes and you take it to the dealership and you're like, hey, I want you to fix that, and I have no idea how you fix it, but I'm going to tell you how to fix it. Impossible, right? Impossible, right? But that's what business owners do. That's what we do. Like we have an EIN, and so we think we know everything. When we really know some, we don't know all. So my thought-provoking question to this guy, and I ask this a lot to customers, especially when they're stuck: do you want to be right, or do you want to be, or do you want to have us help you get to where you want to get? Because you can't be both.
Wow, that is a good question.
And I struggle with this in my own life in many, many ways. Like, I know what I'm really, really good at, and I know what I'm not good at, right? And I sometimes push up against that ego as well. Like, go to my doctor. Hey, doctor, I don't feel so good. Well, you probably shouldn't eat so much sugar. Come on, doc. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Like, I can eat all the sugar I want. I know I can. Okay. Do you want to feel better, or do you want to be right? And you have to add, that's a crushing question in the sales process. And you know what? You have to be okay. If you're on the end of asking that question, you have to be okay with that prospect telling you, you know what, I want to be right. And then understanding, okay, that's not the right fit.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's, especially people starting out, that's a hard thing, a hard position to come from, is, like you said, you don't want to chase money in your prospects. And so, like, being able to say, no, like, you're not a good fit. Like, and at the beginning, like I said, it's hard for a lot. It was hard for me because it's like, well, revenue is nice. So
you want to eat.
Yeah, exactly. But like for where I am now, like, if you bring in someone just to chase that money or whatnot, like, they usually end up being bigger headaches as clients.
They will take more of your time.
Yes.
You'll make less money. You'll not get the results. It'll just be a snowball of negativity. Yeah. And that's just not in one realm of business. It's in many realms of business. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about acquisition, and when private equity gets involved. And what private equity does is try to shine a light on all the strengths. And they look at the things that you do really, really well, that produces or that has high production value. So I went through a private equity exchange where I sold a business back in 2018 in the home service space, and they did exactly that. They were like, okay, your strength is customer acquisition, and then getting those customers to buy from you over and over and over again. But you focus more on the acquisition than you do on them buying from you over and over and over again, although you're really, really good at that. And so basically what they did was they took that piece of over and over and over again, and they basically put it on steroids and took that piece of it that was like 30% of the revenue, 40% of the revenue, whatever that number was, it was somewhere in there, and they like 10x'd it. And in business, it's hard sometimes, like identifying and knowing what you're really good at. Mm-hmm. But if you can, and you focus on those things that you're really, really good at, and then you put people, teams, partners, vendors in place that do the other things that you're not good at, that's how you can achieve levels of success. But like you said, it's hard starting out because you probably have limited resources. Most of the time you have a lot more time than you have money. And so we're willing to exchange time to learn or time to gain, when really time is the most valuable resource we have, because nobody's making any more of that.
It's true. Yeah.
Where money is a resource that you can create over and over and over and over again. Most of the time, though, that's where people have the biggest problem. So they think, man, I'll trade you my time, or I'll trade my time to try to learn this, when their capacity to learn that isn't there. And all they do is put a cap on their ability to grow. And if you look at teams or you look at companies that don't have that problem growing, it's because they trust others. They utilize partners. They have teams in place that can make stuff happen. They have key people that they count on to make decisions. And success leaves clues. And if you want to get to a level of success, like you match what that company or other companies are doing, it's amazing how it falls into place.
Yeah. And again, it kind of goes back to where you mentioned earlier, like having that sales process. You have process and systems, work. It can be duplicated. It can, that's what's going to take you to the next level. And so, with that, with a sales process, what is like kind of like a high level view of a positive or of a good sales process look like? What does that flow look like? Yeah.
So, a sales process starts with the communication with the customer. So like responding, if it's a phone call, answering the phone, if it's an email or a text or a social media message, like having response that's quick. Now, if somebody, communicates with you, it's the middle of the night, obviously you shouldn't be responding. But, during business hours, one of our core values is we respond same day, but actually internally it's we respond within the hour. And I do that because there's nothing worse than somebody having an inquiry or somebody having a question and it just hangs out there. I know that annoys me to no end. So response is like the beginning of the process. And if you get response down and then you get down follow up, you'll beat people to market. So we owned a exterior cleaning and Christmas light business for about 5.5, almost 6 years. And we would hear this all the time. Third day, fourth day of the sales process in our follow-up, and we followed up 2, maybe 3 times by then. Hey, I haven't even gotten a quote from anybody else yet. So they've gotten a quote. We've touched them 2, maybe 3 times, and no one else has gotten them a quote, right? Our speed to market was the key to our success with sales. It wasn't because we were lower priced, because we weren't. And Christmas light service is an insanely expensive service. So like you're not, I'm picking you because of price. It was speed and our follow-up. So if you look at your sales process, first thing, are you responding in a timely manner? And timely manner is immediate. If you don't respond, guess that customer's going to go back to wherever they started and pick the next one.
Yep.
Right? Google search, social media, like wherever that is. So response has to be immediate. Next is, what is your ability to deliver the requested information? So a lot of times that's a price, a quote, an estimate, and how you deliver that is just as important as when it's delivered. And what I mean by how is like, what does the packaging of your services look like?
Okay.
So in home service, for example, you have service A, that is your number one service, right? But you have all these other add-ons. And so what a lot of companies will do is they'll give line item options to clients. Well, they're not going to pick line items because they don't know they need them. But if you come back with bronze, silver, gold packages, and those packages have specific services in place, first of all, the human psyche, 50% of the time, they're going to pick the middle.
Yep.
And they see the access to the services that they didn't know you had. And so it spurs them to want those services. So that's the delivery. Then the follow-up is important. Look, sales doesn't start until you hear no. It's all order taking at that point, right? And so having a follow-up process in place that touches that customer or that prospect consistently and continuously over a period of time. In the first 21 days after we delivered an estimate, we touched that prospect 10 times via phone call, email, text, and mail if it got to that. If they didn't do anything in the 21 days, our next touch was at day 30. And then we kept touching them 2 to 3 times a quarter after that until they told us no or they told us yes. And then if they told us no, they went into another bucket where we stayed in touch with them. Right?
Yeah.
We would convert 7 to 10% of our clients in those other buckets 6 months or more down the road.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people give up just in that process of follow-ups way, way, way too soon. We could even increase our follow-up process. Like, just listening to what you just said, I'm like, okay, yeah, we could extend that even more. But I think that's crucial because a lot of people don't buy on the first go round.
Well, dude, podcast name, Elevate Your Brand, right? Yep. If you want people to know about your brand, you have to tell them about it. Yep. You have to constantly be communicating it. Look, lead generation and brand are on the opposite end of the axis. Like lead generation is quick, right? And brand takes time. Yep. Well, during your lead gen, you're building your brand. You're building your brand based upon what you tell people you are. Like people think brand is their logo and their colors and all that pretty stuff. Sure. That's like 1/1,000,000th of a piece, right? The brand is what people think about you and say about you when you're not around. And if they're not saying or thinking about you, they don't know about you. Right? So that process, lead generation, sales process, like all of that is in the brand creation, right? Dominate Partners, like my logo, everybody's like, I love that logo. I mean, we created it to try to create memory, right? I'm a pretty aggressive individual, so Dominate is an aggressive brand, right? Kind of in your face. Yeah. And when we're at trade shows and stuff like that, like my background is it looks like a graffiti wall, but the graffiti is actually like all the marketing things you can, the jargons and the terms and all that stuff. We may have a cloaked bad word in there somewhere, something like that, because we're in your face brand. Yeah. But when I leave, like I want people to remember it. So that's just one piece of it. But to customers and to prospects, like people want to get that. I want to do business by word of mouth and referral. Well, that's all about your brand. And if you're not delivering in the sales process and in the follow-up, nobody's going to know who you are.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's huge. And I think, again, you have to have those touch points for people to know about you. And you have to be front of mind because there's so much going on that if you're not top of mind, you're just going to get replaced.
Yeah. Competitors will take your place and they'll become top of mind.
Exactly.
Take your money.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure. And it's, I think, kind of with that process you mentioned earlier too, that I wanted to dive in a little bit, is when you're in the sales process, you have to understand and figure out what's the actual thing you're selling. It might not be the nail. It could be, the feeling of security because that nail is going to keep your pieces together. Whatever that is, a true reason. And how important truly is that, figuring that out?
And that's the difference between success in sales and failure in sales. Like understanding what it is you're selling that the customer wants or needs. Like, it's all about needs and wants. A lot of times we get caught up on features and benefits. Like, in the home service space, the people throw around the old, I'm licensed and insured. Well, go look in every state. There is no such thing as like a pressure washing license or a Christmas light license. Like, you can be registered in the state as a business. It's not a license, right? So we use that kind of stuff, and then we'll be like, oh, well, my people wear uniforms when they come to your house. Like, they wear a uniform. Okay. Nobody's getting warm and fuzzy inside. Right. So I always tell people, okay, think about the greatest chicken that there is on this planet, Chick-fil-A, right?
Yep.
Why are they so great? Like, is it because the chicken is good? I mean, that's what makes people keep coming back, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But go get in their drive-thru and see how long it takes you, because you're going to get in the drive-thru and be like, oh, my God, this is going to take forever. And then 5 minutes later, you have a bag of Jesus chicken,
yep,
and you are on your way, right?
Yeah.
It's the greatest experience in the world. And Chick-fil-A, I found this out doing some study on Truett Cathy, the guy who started and founded Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
They would rent out stadiums to test their drive-thrus.
Wow.
And to train people on their drive-thru. Right? Huh. How many fast food restaurants do you think do that?
Right? Exactly.
Zero. I don't even know the answer. I'm guessing zero. Right. But they want to make sure that your drive-thru experience is head and shoulders above the rest. To me, like going into a restaurant, going into a Chick-fil-A, I don't mind it. Sometimes I'll like do the calculations. It's going to be longer this way or longer that way. And the only really times I go into a Chick-fil-A is when I'm traveling, because I'm trying to be healthy, and I have my wife watching me all the time. It's like, yeah, we're not Chick-fil-A. But if we're traveling, like, hey, and you make that calculation, drive through, walk in, which one? Now, walking in is a totally different experience, because they want you to feel like you can have whatever you want. They want that experience to be a totally separate experience from when you're in the drive-thru, right?
Yep.
And so they understand that when someone comes to their restaurant, it's not just because they're hungry. It's because they want something quick and to be done with this process.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really what they sell: customer service and fulfillment at the highest level.
Yeah.
And that's what they care about. I can remember, it was like 8 years ago. And my wife and I went to a Chick-fil-A for breakfast. It had just opened. And at the time, she was in the corporate world. She was a cosmetology trainer. And so it was a Saturday morning. I owned the home service business. And so our Saturday mornings went like this. We'd go to breakfast somewhere. She'd go to school to teach students. And then I'd go put out yard signs, do whatever to try to generate business that day to set up my schedule. That's what we did. So this day we're going to Chick-fil-A. The restaurant opened at 7, and we got there at like 6:55, right? We go to the door, and the door's locked. On the other side is a Chick-fil-A employee who probably had a really bad evening or woke up with some stress, because she was not in a good mood. And I only remember this specific interaction because it was totally foreign to a Chick-fil-A experience, right? Because their job in creating their brand is, when you think Chick-fil-A, you think customer service, an interrupted, ridiculous experience, and, oh, by the way, chicken. Waffle fries. Right? Yeah. And that's what you think about. And that's what they want you to believe. So in looking at your business, like how can you take those lessons? Because I said success leaves clues. Like Chick-fil-A has never had a year where the revenue was less than the year before. They've never had a year where they lost money.
Wow.
How many businesses can say that?
Right.
Revenue has always increased. And they've never had a year where they didn't turn a profit. Ridiculous. And the day that would be the most busy day for them, they're closed on.
Yeah.
And actually, it started out as a religious thing.
Yep.
But now their executives say the reason why they don't open on a Sunday is because it would crush their ability to be able to fulfill the rest of the week. They wouldn't have enough product. A Sunday would be 3 to 4x of what any other day would be, and they would not be able to fulfill at the level of service they need to fulfill at. But as a business, as other businesses and as business owners listening right now, we would say, you know what, I'll increase revenue by being open on Sunday, and that'll make me more money at the detriment of 5 other days of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you learn from that model? Well, number one, they figured out what people want more than just their product.
Right.
And it's the ability to get something quick and easy without hassle. Like they're the only restaurant experience I know that has those 3 things in the delivery: quick, easy, without hassle. Right.
Yep.
So how does your brand, how does your company deliver to its customers? I would say, like, when we think about value, a lot of times we have 2 pieces of value that we lose sight of. And number one is speed. How quickly you deliver something. Think about it in your business, Chris. You're talking to somebody and they're talking to someone else that's a competitor to you, whatever. First to market gets their attention. It doesn't mean they're going to buy from you, but it gets their attention, right? Yeah. First to market. So speed. Next one is ease of use. Mm-hmm. How easy is it for someone to be able to do business with you? I can tell you, if I look back at our reviews from home service and even this company, people would tell us, man, the great things about your company is you do this quickly and you make it so easy for us to do this thing.
Yep.
And that's what you have to be thinking about. What values your company amongst your competitors, and then like put the hammer down on them. Because everything else that you think is a value isn't a value to your customer. It's in your mind that it's value. But until you get into your customer's mind and realize, okay, they want something easy, they want something quick, they want something that has no hassle. How can I deliver that? And then you begin delivering at that level. Your cost your per customer average is going to go up. Your closing rate will go up. Your referral rate will go up. Like all those things will go up because you're providing true value to your customer.
Yeah, that's so right too. Because like our clients, like we've polled them and surveyed them and stuff, and a lot of it is you've made our podcasting process easy, our sales process easier because of the podcast. People are warmed up to what we're doing now, and you take so much out of our hands and make it simple. That's the only reason we start a podcast. So like the simplicity is there, the turnaround's there, and the quality is there. And so, yeah, I mean, that can be further from that can be closer to the truth there. Like we can't get blinded by all the good things we've created in our product and miss like the true reason why people want it. Because that'll start, if we don't look at the true reason people want to buy our thing, we're going to start having a lot less. Our close rate is going to become worse because we're not understanding the true reason of why people are buying.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, another thing, in the sales process that kind of you hear a lot about in our objections with people. And I know a lot of those, are just excuses a lot of the time, or we're not asking the right questions, or we're not listening well enough as the person selling. I mean, is that the thing? We just have to ask better questions and listen better to overcome those objections?
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it too is realizing when an objection really isn't an objection, and it's more of a kind of brush off or push off. Like, I'd rather have somebody just tell me no.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
One of the worst objections, especially when you deal maybe with singular business owners or homeowners, is like, I got to talk to my spouse.
Right.
So, like, for instance, in the spaces that I owned previous to this, like, no dude is waking up in the morning and going, you know what? My house is dirty on the outside and I need to call a pressure washing company. I mean, let's think about it.
Right.
That comes into detail, and that is a very non-man thing to think about most of the time. There are some dudes, obviously, that are very detail-oriented, but I'm talking about percentage-wise, right? My wife is the one that would tell me that, right? So if I do honey, I'll take care of it, blah, blah, blah. I reach out to a company, be like, hey, I need this, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we can get you on the schedule, next Monday. Let me talk to my wife. Really, dude? No. You don't need to talk to your wife.
Right.
She's the one that told you to do this, right? So there's usually an objection means there's another reason why they're telling you no.
Yeah.
In the great movie, The Boiler Room, Ben Affleck, when he is in his training mode and he's got 20 telemarketers that are slinging fraudulent stocks, he's talking about objections, and he goes, tell me you don't like my necktie, right? In other words, don't give me something that isn't true as to why you don't want to buy from me. Like, tell me why you don't want to buy from me. And that's really what an objection is. So as a salesperson, our job is to find out that real reason. And I think that's a craft. There's some really good follows out in terms of individuals who do this really well. Like, one of my favorites right now, his name is Andy Elliott. He's in the vehicle or automotive world. Okay. But he trains like sales teams, not only at dealerships, but insurance companies, and he's a very number one impassioned speaker. But he's also very good. If you listen to some of his like sales calls that he does for some of his clients, like, the dude is really good at delivering value. Okay. And then he turns that value around and basically, don't you want that value? It's not what he says, but that's basically the gist of it, right? Yeah. So when you get an objection, number one, you should have the primary objections that you get. Like, you should have them until you have them memorized. You should have them written down somewhere so you can look at them with great rebuttals, right? Okay. And then they should become just part of your talk off, right? One of my favorite objections was when they said to us, hey, I haven't even gotten another quote. And our rebuttal was, I can definitely understand that you're wanting to get other quotes. But let me ask you this. What does that make you feel about how they're going to serve you if you give them the business that it's taken them long to respond to a simple thing of just giving you a price? Yeah. Oh, like, how you overcoming that, right? Right. There would still be people that would be like, well, I just want to make sure, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Right. But then there would be people that would be like, you ain't wrong. Like, you ain't wrong. Okay. Yeah. So you have to come up with, okay, what are and I always say, like, pick five, the top five, have a great rebuttal. Don't be afraid to be direct. Like, we're so afraid of asking those direct questions. I mean, that rebuttal that I just gave you to that objection, very direct. Like, it's going to hurt somebody in terms of, that's tough, Right. But if you're not direct, everybody's just going to keep beating around the bush and you're not going to get any business. So with objections, identify your top five. Are they legit, right? And then get a rebuttal for it. The objections that aren't legit, like, hey, I can definitely understand you need to speak to XYZ. If it's a company, to a partner, to this, to that, What do you think they're going to say? Like, what's going to be their number one stumbling block or number one reason why they don't want to do business with us? Like, what is that? Right. Yeah. And that person's going to tell you what their issue is, or they're just going to say, I don't know. I have to talk to them. So, like, you have to determine objection, legit or not. And those objections that are legit have rebuttals. And then it's a craft. Like, you have to constantly be practicing how to communicate what it is you do, who it is you do it for, and how well you do it. And if you do those things over and over again, then your sales process becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I agree on that. I think that's the thing. And I think a lot of people, especially starting out, just haven't done enough either. They haven't done enough reps. It's just like anything. Like if you're shooting a basketball, if you're, throwing football, whatever it is, if you're golfing, like you have to practice, get better, and you're gonna have to do it a lot, and tweak things every now and then eventually, you'll get to that par 5, and you're like, oh, okay, I need to start with this club, and then I got in the rough. Okay, I need to use this club to get out of there, and I shanked that one too. Well, that's my game at least. I shanked that one too, and so you got to understand what club to use when it comes to the position you're on, and so I think it's the same kind of thing on sales calls with objections is you just got to know which club to pull out of the bag and hit them over the head with. I'm not just kidding, but which to approach with. So
you ain't wrong.
Right. But it is a process. And Gary, this has been great. You just dropped a whole bunch of value within this, and I'm grateful for that. I think those listening, they're going to be better just from this conversation, be able to take that away and implement what you shared today. So thank you so much for that. Where can people connect with you best at to find out more about what you're doing? Maybe they're looking for home services, things of that nature, or just want to learn more from you.
So I'm really, really active on Facebook, facebook.com/Gary Geiman. And then our website is salvonow.com. So that's SALVONOW.com. Salvo is a French and German military term from pre-World War I, and it means the generals would yell salvo. It meant to shoot all of our guns right now. And I believe, marketing and promotion, you need to have everything ready to go. And that's why I have that as our website, but salvonow.com or Facebook. And we'd love to interact, answer any questions you might have. I'm all about, look, not everybody's going to be our customer or can be our customer, but I am interested in helping people change their lives. So if you have a question, something that is keeping you from success, reach out. I answer all my messages. I don't have anybody that does that for me. I'm not that cool. I'll answer them, and hopefully I can give you something to help you.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. Gary, again, thanks so much for being on Elevate Your Brand today.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well.